for joining us today. We're a smaller group. That's because this is one of those holidays. So we're glad you could spend some time with us. We'll have a few folks dropping in here as we start. As always, I'm joined by Joseph Harrison from Advancing Employment IHDD and Amy Price. And I don't know if Tracy's on. I don't think Dr. Rackensberger was going to be on today. Just a couple updates before we introduce Miss Debbie Ball. This is the second week of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and our Georgia Coalition has deemed this Employer Month. And if we have a little time at the end, Amy, you might want to talk about some of the interviews you've done, but Joseph will be disseminating that as well. The coalition, of course, is right there behind Joseph's head, that gorgeous head. All those folks that support, there you go, support what we're doing here in NDAM. And so we're really excited. Had a lot of great feedback from the kickoff event last week and enjoyed that so much. Just a couple things real quick. We'll continue the webinars next Monday and the following Monday. Next Monday is a colleague, Tricia Jones-Parkin, on transition from school to work. And then the final week, that final Monday, we will be joined by Poppin' Joe's and Joe's sister to talk about self-employment. Just real quick, if you are interested in the symposiums that we're doing, which is invitation only, one is on self-employment, the other one is on state as model employer, please let Joseph or I know so we can make sure to invite you. Those will not be webinars. Those will be kind of thinking through what other states have done and what we need to do here. We also have one that we'll be finalizing, hopefully, in the next week or so on Georgia disability history specific to Georgia. So we're excited about that. We want you to, unmute when you can to ask questions. Debbie said she's very comfortable with just kind of fielding questions as we go. Debbie Ball is the Vice President of Easterseals Southern California. Had you in South Carolina. But Debbie is just a trailblazer. We were talking just earlier about some of the really cool stuff she's doing in recruiting quality staff to do customized employment, to do economic development in just a totally different way. But Debbie's also been an underwriter in securing funding for a lot of the fidelity scales that have been introduced by Griffin Hammes around discovery, which is person-centered career planning, customized job development, and an exciting one that's only being tested out right now in Debbie's area with the consultative job coach approach. I could go on and on. Debbie is a fixture at the Griffin Hammes Best Go West Rendezvous, just a leader in this field. And as you'll see, the Office of Disability Employment Policy tapped Debbie to use that expertise around veterans. So help me welcome Debbie, and I'll turn it over to you now, Debbie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Doug. And I want to give a shout out to one of my brand new staff who is jumping on the webinar this morning, Tess Esperanza. See, we went from South Carolina to Esperanza. We're off to a great start. Tess, welcome. It's good to have you on the webinar. Thank you all for having me. There's Tess. Thank you all for having me today. We'll be talking about customized employment and how it applies to our nation's veterans. So I do have my handy dandy little PowerPoint here. As Doug said, please feel free to ask questions as we go. When I look at my screen, all I see is my slides. So please don't raise your hand or anything like that. Just go through the chat box and get Doug's attention and he'll interrupt me. I do want to keep this open and informal. I want to make it a conversation. I really don't want to make it about me sitting here and talking for an hour. So I think that the way to really make sure that people get what they want out of any session is to make sure that they have the opportunity to ask what they want. So feel free to ask away. Any questions before we get started? All right. So objectives today are an overview of customized employment, understanding why customized employment works well for veterans, learn what makes customized employment different, and meet some veterans who have obtained competitive integrated employment or CIE using customized employment.
Debbie, should we be able to see your screen?
Oh, yes, you should. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's see here. Oh, I was going on my own little screen and it looked beautiful to me. Okay, now can you see my screen? There we go. All right. My apologies. Okay, now we need to get rid of the others. There we go. Okay. All right. Objectives, as I said, overview of customized employment, understanding why CE works well for veterans, learn what makes CE different, and meet some veterans who obtain CIE or competitive integrated employment using customized employment. So customized employment means individualizing the employment relationship between employees and employers in ways that meet the needs of both. It's based on an individualized determination of the strengths, needs, and interests of the person with a disability, and is also designed to meet the specific needs of the employer. I'm sure none of that is new to any of you. It is the formal definition of customized employment. In a nutshell, it means we all have something to contribute, and businesses everywhere are looking for employees who can improve their bottom line. Okay, so it's a whole lot of words that are just saying, yeah, everybody can work, and everybody means everybody. With customized employment, some of the things that really resonate with me are the fact that it's zero exclusion. Right? Everybody really does mean everybody. It doesn't mean when you're ready for this, or if you do this, or you have to do this first. It means now, right? It means you, it means me, it means everybody, it means now. Okay. A lot of people think, well, he can't because X, right? There are no becauses, there are no buts, there are no ifs, and there are no tries. It's just that simple. It's only employment. Okay. That's what really makes most of us tick in our lives. That's what builds a quality of life for people. And that's what our commitment needs to be to the individuals we support, whether they're veterans or people with disabilities of some other type. So it's really about zero exclusion. It's about presuming competence. When I meet you, I presume that you're competent. I don't wonder what's wrong with you and then try to fill out what's wrong with you and write a list of everything that's your deficit, right? We could do that all day long. I'm sure I know I could do it about myself all day long, but that's not what we do. But for some reason, when it comes to people with disabilities, that's what we do. Okay. So customized employment looks at attributes. It looks about where you start, what you have, what your contributions are, where you're starting. And again, we all have something to contribute, period. So we're going to look at who, what, when, where, why, and how. Today, we're looking at veterans, right? So it's not only veterans with combat injuries, but it's also veterans who may have some mental health issues, have problems flipping through jobs when they get back. You know, a lot of times we see veterans will come back and they start cycling through jobs because they didn't necessarily have a career path when they started in the military. And then they get out and what they know is what they learned in the military. But, you know, obviously the community's changed since they were here. The job scene has certainly changed. Well, some of the people that I'll introduce you to later, you know, have certainly experienced that firsthand. So it's, you know, it's for anybody who I say it's for anybody who traditional employment doesn't work. If it's that, you know, just are you hiring, here's a person, drop them in, and it's not working for the person, then look at customized employment. I really do think it's universal and that it works for everyone. I think that it's what people, I'm going to say what you and I do naturally in our environments. You know, it's building on social capital. It's building on what we know. It's building on our attributes. It's connecting with people in the community. It's testing out theories and seeing where we're at our best. So that's the who of it. I think it can be applied universally. But typically what we see is that it's really, it has the greatest impact when it's people who have been kind of cycling through jobs for whatever reason. It's all about getting to know a person. You get to know them on the front end. it's through discovery that we learn about people's geniuses and what they can bring to the table. I truly believe that we all have something to bring to the table, and that we all have a different perspective in life, and we all have different experiences, which really add to the workforce. When we touched on a little bit, when means now. For some people, and especially in the veteran system, when means after they've cycled through a few employers and not been successful. And that's fine. DOR in some places is doing the same thing. If a person's not being successful in traditional employment means, then they're starting to say customized employment is a resource that can be beneficial. But yeah, when means now. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Because we can all thrive and have better lives if we're all connected to the community and we build our own networks and our own systems. And it's based on us and what makes us light up. And then that in turn makes everybody else better. Where customized employment works everywhere. We have found the greatest success with smaller employers. I think it's simply because smaller employers have that more of a family feel to them. So rather than just being an associate number or, trying to get up to the next pay grade, you've really got coworkers that have your back. And, if somebody's having a bad day, they're there to step in and help you up. They aren't there to step on your back and step over you so they get the next raise or they get the attention of the supervisor. So for me, I really, really push small businesses. I also think that it's where we can have the greatest economic impact, because so often those small businesses are stretched so thin and have such small staffs that everyone that everyone is doing everything, and that things get stacked up. And oftentimes when we go in and we can find some of those things that are stacked up or that are going by the wayside, we can show them how we can benefit their bottom line by taking care of those things and making other things more seamless and more efficient for them. So it's not only the jobs that are advertised, oftentimes it's the jobs that aren't advertised that we're the most successful with and that work well for customized employment. And how is get out there and do it, right? I don't know that there's ever been a job. Well, no, I was going to say maybe years ago. I don't know that there's ever been a job secured by sitting at a desk, right? I mean, if you're flipping through the classified ads, well, if you're flipping through the classified ads, you're my age. I don't think they even have jobs in classified ads anymore. But, that's the wrong place to be. That's not where people are hiring. It is when I meet with Doug or I meet with Joseph or I meet with Amy and I make a personal connection and I let them know that I can bring something to their bottom line and that I'm passionate about the work that they do. That's where the connection happens. So it's really getting out there in the field and making those connections and making a difference. That's how the magic happens. And it's following the process. That's another thing too. People are like, oh, it takes a long time, or we don't need to do this, or we can skip this, or I just want to do this part. It's really about following the process. Okay. It is, as my friend says, a little yellow brick road, right? It's part art, part science, but it really is following the process. It's a well-documented process. It's not new. It's not old. People are still adopting it. I mean, my goodness. As old as it is, people are still adopting it, but DOL just adopted it in 2014. So even though, some of the best books were written in the earlier 2000s, it's still not widely used, but I truly believe that customized employment works for everyone. Doug, any questions?
Yes, it's interesting you would ask, and you'll probably know these acronyms better than I do, but I'll try it. Debbie, how do you work with DVOPS, Disabled Veteran Outreach Program, and or local veteran employment representatives? Do you work with them when you're doing this process?
I do not work directly with DVOPS. And I'm not sure what the person is talking about when they say local veteran representatives.
They're called livers, I believe.
Oh, DVOPS and levers. Got it.
Yeah, right. Levers, not livers. Yeah, so I guess that's all the ETA funding. And my guess, Debbie, would be that the folks you're supporting in discovery and customized employment, and I'm just taking I don't mean any offense, but I'm assuming they probably didn't have a great experience with that formal veterans, either outreach or employment representative, and that's how you're coming to know them as a provider.
That's very true. Oftentimes, a lot of people get stuck in the system, and my particular service line is philanthropically based, or philanthropically funded. So we work within the system, in that, we refer to each other, and there are opportunities back and forth. But yeah, the services that we provide are funded through philanthropy. So
I think Deb, we'd like to talk, because there's another question near the end I think we wanted to field around that funding piece. I think we'll get to that. Kitterson Klein just says, I love the fact that customized employment is branching out to vets. So you're getting some love over there. But Deb, we'll return to those other questions as we finish up today.
okay, perfect. This is one of our very first success stories. So this is not Bill in the photo, but the success story is about Bill. Bill was in the Navy, elite ops for many years, many years, and got out, and the world wasn't what he wanted it to be. Actually, as he tells it, he fell in love and decided that he needed to be a civilian again. And then it decided, yeah, that wasn't working so well. So he got back in the Coast Guard, and was again doing some extreme work. And then he decided that his body was a little too old for all of this. So he got out and started, canvassing for jobs, and, sending his resume everywhere. A highly skilled individual, super entrepreneurial, very, very charismatic, just, and bright, super bright. I mean, like wicked smart. And of course, nobody's responding to resumes, and that wasn't what he was used to before he went into the military. So he couldn't quite get a feel for that. And I think by his count, he sent out over 500 resumes, and nobody was even calling. And then he's tried a couple jobs, and it wasn't working for him. So he ended up coming to us, and we started working with him. And he's like, I've got this crazy idea, but I really think I just want to work for myself. I'm kind of sick of the people, and I want to do something with my with my engineering and my my trade skills. So he came up with Persetto, and you'll see it at the bottom of the page there. That's his brand name, and it is, if you look to the right on the photo, it looks like a little hat rack. It is a battery operated USB charger that you can sit next to, like a bar or a restaurant table, or say a pedicure chair in a salon, and hang your bag on it, so you don't need to worry about it setting it on the floor or anything, and be charging your device at the same time. So it has 5 different kinds of chargers in it. It's totally movable, so you could move it around, whatever makes best sense. So, it's not like a company would have to have 50 of them next to all 50 tables. You could have 5, and then a person would just put it next to their table when they needed to use it. And he's done quite well with it. He's really done well, and he's actually he got a partner in through some sweat equity, and they are about to sell it and start up with his second process. So this was something that he was able to do. As he said, his body was a bit battle scarred and weary, and he couldn't do some of the things that he used to do. So he wasn't sure what he was going to do, and then he wasn't really finding his niche in, if you will, quote unquote, civilian employment, or under being an employee. So he just took a shot, and he went out there, and he's actually he was on one of the local Shark Tanks, and he won, I think, $5,000 for his part of his startup. Anyway, so he is so that was his solution to customized employment, and where he wanted to go with his life. I think he's got some really great. Really great. He just wants to do microbiz after microbiz after microbiz. He wants to start it up and sell it, and start it up and sell it, and start it up. And I think he's going to be fabulous at it. So yeah, so that's Bill, and that's how customized employment worked for him.
Deb, Cynthia Shipman has just said that she has to agree that customized employment is for everyone. To your point, she says, awesome statement.
Awesome, thanks. So the components of customized employment are discovery, job search planning, job development and negotiation, and post-employment support. And by the way, I should have said this at the front. I'm going to kind of go back and forth between slides like this and then stories of successes, and then slides like this and stories of successes. So I just want to tie it all in for you. But again, I really want to keep it informal and I want to keep it meaningful. So, so discovery really gets to know the person and who they are and where they are right now. It doesn't look for deficits. It looks for attributes, right? When does a person really light up? That's my phrase. I want to see when their eyes spark, right? If I'm talking to somebody and we're talking about different things in their history and they're just kind of and then all of a sudden something makes our eyes light up. I want to pull that thread. I want to learn more about that. I want to see if maybe that's something that we can work with. That, you know, if obviously it's important enough in the person's life that it changed their expression when we were talking. So is it something that perhaps could be something that you could base a career on? Or is it just a hobby that they enjoy? And if it is, that's fine too, but you can still learn from it. One of the examples I like to use is, you know, I like to tie flies. Okay, I like to fly fish, and I learned to tie flies. So if someone learned that during discovery, that's pretty interesting because it's pretty unique. But then if you tear it apart, you think about the fact that it requires extreme concentration, that it's very artistic, right? That it's very specific because you're literally imitating nature, right? Or else your flies aren't going to work. And that it's using a variety of materials. And it's also so precise that you almost, well, you use like a little tiny vise. I mean, it looks like a little needle nose, right? And it's almost like you have to hold your breath when you're doing it because you're working with fur fibers and little pieces of feathers, right? So you think about those skills. Now, when somebody just says, oh yeah, I like to fly fish, you know, it doesn't mean much. But then when you learn that they like to do something like tying flies, you're like, wow, that is really intricate. And if a person can tie flies, I mean, the sky's the limit, come on. But so look for those kind of things when you're getting to know somebody. If somebody says something like that, learn a little more about it. And especially if you don't know about it, dig a little bit deeper and see where that passion is and what they really like about it. And think about how that may connect to employment, not to a specific job or not to a specific job title, but to employment. If someone is that dedicated to being that precise and that creative at the same time, geez, where else could those skills be used? I think that they could be used a lot of places. So we want to get to know when people are at their best and also when they need supports. We all need supports at some point. It doesn't matter who we are. And we all have times when we're better and times when we're worse. So we want to bring those things together. We want to learn what other people have to say about the individual, right? Because all of us view everyone through our own lenses. And if we only use our lens to look through, that's all we're ever going to see. But when we start bringing in other people who are important to that individual, then we start filling out that circle and we start learning more about them. Job search planning, after we go through discovery, now we're going to start job search planning based on everything that we know. Discovery isn't a standalone piece. Discovery doesn't stop and you close that book and then you start job search planning. So often that happens, especially with people with significant disabilities, is okay, I've done the form, now we go into job search. And that's not two different things. Everything that you've done in discovery informs the job search planning. Every single piece should be leading to the job search planning. So then you're going to look at the person's themes and ideal conditions of employment. You're going to look at local community or local businesses in your community that those kind of things coalesce, and that where this person might be a benefit to the employers. And you're going to be thinking about post-employment supports. And those will really come in handy as you're already thinking about conditions of employment during discovery, because everything that is a condition of employment is typically a need for post-employment supports, whether it be negotiation or other type of supports. So it really just keeps building on each other, but you can't pull out one single piece of it. It is very much, I'm going to say it's very much a globe. It's very much, one piece, one unit. Discovery focuses on interests, skills and talents, contributions, and conditions of employment. So interests, again, what makes a person light up, right? Do they have, I don't know, I think about one guy we worked with, and he actually, when he started working with us, he had on his LinkedIn profile that he killed people. That was his list of skills. So we thought that perhaps he could change that. And we started looking at other things that might be of interest to him. And we started really pulling up. I mean, he was pretty down on himself at that point. And, he's like, I don't know what I do. I mean, all I've ever done is kill people. And then so we started talking about different pieces of his military career and everything that was involved in that. And, it was intense. I mean, he had a lot of stuff that he did in addition to, obviously hunting terrorists. But when we started breaking it out and we started looking at logistics and we started looking at, managing his troops and we started looking at all the individual pieces, his passion was really with the people he worked with and leading and serving. Those were really what it got down to. So we're not asking people what their dream jobs are. We're looking for something that's meaningful to that individual, right? And we're not just kicking them jobs, here's Home Depot hiring, or here's a gun store that's hiring, or here's, the police are hiring, all those cliches, or, it's like, oh, if you did this, you must do this. That's wrong. So what we're looking for is we're really looking for those interests. So we followed that thread. And we found out that he had some work to do, like we all do, but that doesn't prevent us from moving forward. So he was really a person who would, I don't know, it's almost like he became stronger when others needed him more, both internally and externally. He ended up working for a boys' camp in the woods, and he was their mentor. And it was pretty much a camp for troubled boys. And he could share his experiences and skills and teach others how they can be stronger and better. So, you think about those contributions and those things that he learned in the military and applying those to a job, and a job that was meaningful. He's since gotten married. He has 2 children of his own, and he's doing really, really well. So some people would say that he didn't have many interests or contributions, especially when they first looked at his LinkedIn profile. But that's not true. And, conditions of employment, he had a ton. He really did. So typically we talk about ideal conditions of employment. I don't use the word ideal that often because I think that people think, well, yeah, my ideal conditions of employment are $1 million and I work 2 days a week and, somebody rubs suntan lotion on my back. And that's not it, right? The conditions of employment are really, again, what makes us be us and what makes us successful. So for him, he didn't want to take orders. That was real important for him. And he really wanted to be a leader and he really wanted to serve. And it wasn't that he wanted to be a leader because, I'm not sure how best to say this. It wasn't like he wanted to be a leader because he wanted to be in charge. He wanted to be a leader because he truly felt that he had something that other people could gain from. So it really worked out well. And then, the conditions of employment, he was an extreme outdoors person. Do not lock this man up in an office. I mean, if you ever want to see somebody fail at a job, lock him up in an office, lock me up in an office for that matter. But, so he had some real specific conditions of employment. And this was how he came alive.
Debbie, you something that I think is so powerful, and I just want to draw the attendees' attention to it. And that is, in this specific situation with this job seeker, one of those conditions of employment was did not want to take orders. And what usually happens, regardless of your label inside of our disability systems, is we latch onto that and we want to fix that before, right? So I think when you can start noticing those things inside of our systems, particularly if you're trying to implement discovery and customized job development to fidelity, that those things will act as something that will stall the process rather than saying, that's a condition of employment. It is not my job to ameliorate that issue, fix that issue. I'm being funded to help this person find meaningful employment. And one of those conditions must be that he's in charge or he's not taking orders. And I think leaving the judgments off of those things is so important, because we love inside our systems just to do referrals. I'm going to refer him to skills for daily activities. I'm going to refer him for, not that those referrals are bad, but to notice that up front. So I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, let's flip it on its head. I mean, let's really talk about mental health skills and, mental health needs and mental illness. I'm going to say that employment is a means to recovery. I'm not a person who believes that, you need to change a bunch of stuff before you can work. I think I've already made that point. I'm sorry, but I'm up on my soapbox again. It is a means to recovery, and it is, it's what makes us all thrive. And when we have something to get up in the morning for, it makes a world of difference. So let's just call it what it is, and not refer it out of somebody. I'm sorry, I ended up doing a story there. I hadn't intended to, but so this is Tito. Tito was a culinary specialist, and he wasn't sure what he wanted to do when he got out of the military, and again, kind of went in and out of jobs, and then he decided that, he was pretty intrigued with all of this new coffee stuff. Coffee had really, burst onto the scene, and he decided that he wanted to take his skills that he learned in the military and pair it with coffee. So he wanted to pair pastries with coffee, and that was his idea. So he wanted to have his own coffee shop. So there's a local brewing company, coffee brewers, called Ryan Brothers, and they're right now it's only two brothers, but they started from scratch, and they've expanded, and they've built new franchise, not franchises, but new locations, and they took him under their wings. So it was during an informational interview when he was talking to him, and he was explaining, they just do coffee, by the way, and he was explaining why, kind of what his passion was and how he really wanted to get into the coffee industry, but also to especially pair it with pastries. And they really just connected, and they brought him under their wings, and they started giving him management training, and he was moving up within the company. He actually helped open a new store for them. And then he was able to branch off and start his own coffee business. So, customized employment means a ton of different things to a ton of different people. And we never know where we're going to go when we start. And I think that that's the most beautiful thing about it. Yeah. And we just, there's no limit on it. There's no capacity.
Debbie, can you just explain real quick for folks that technique of getting Tito to do an informational interview? Describe that in some real operational concrete terms, because that's what drove this outcome, right?
That's true. And I can't say enough good stuff about informational interviews. So we learn, through discovery, we learn interests, skills, desires, hopefully what, someone feels is meaningful. And then we test them out. We see if they really are something that the person is interested in, or perhaps they're interested in them for a way that we haven't thought of yet. So we went to this local, and then, it's obviously in their local community. And again, it's a smaller business. So we went to Ryan Brothers and we said, hey, I'm working with this veteran who's, was a culinary specialist, and he's really interested in getting into this coffee craze. How did you get into it? Would you spend some time, showing him around and letting him know how you guys got into it? And for some reason, as it often does, it really resonated with the owners. And they're like, sure, come on back. And they started going through all of the history of how they got into it and how they chose their beans and their specific grinders and the specific products that they would use in their locations. And, and they're entrepreneurs, so they're proud of what they've developed, and they've developed a heck of a reputation. So they were thrilled to be able to share it with someone else who had a passion for it, a similar passion, and then to bring on someone else who was already knowledgeable and passionate about it. We can all hire people with some knowledge, and we can always hire people with some business acumen, but to have someone, to be able to hire someone that truly has a passion and wants to help you develop and help themselves develop, you just can't beat that. And they saw it in Tito, and Tito truly saw it in them. So it was that familial connection. It was like, somebody's coming home. This is my nephew that I never met. Come on in, let's join the family and let's do this together, instead of walking into a larger corporation and just punching the clock, and you're here at 9:02 instead of 9 o'clock. So we want to look at what this person can offer to an employer. Who knows him or her best? Where does she or he live? And find a solid cultural, ecological fit. What this person can offer to an employer, this is huge. And it doesn't just mean tangibles. I mean, think about, like Tito, think about his passion and his personality, right? So when someone comes in, do you think that they're going to see someone go, welcome to Ryan Brothers, what can I get you? Or do you think they're going to say, welcome to Ryan Brothers, right? And just be so glad that you're here and really drive that customer service. That's what we want. That's what benefits the bottom line, right? Not only that, but he can start talking about his pastries. He can start talking about that. Hey, maybe Ryan Brothers wants to add some of his pastries. So there's all kinds of synergies that we can add that just keep building off of that. So it's not just, bring dollars to donuts, but it's, really what's going to help that person and their bottom line. So often we find that it is a person, like Doug knows everybody, right? If I were to put Doug in my local business, if I lived in his neighborhood, Doug would drive customers, right? Because Doug's just that, smiley guy who everybody wants to hang out with. So Doug would drive customers. People would come by just to stop by and say, hey, if they could go to the store next door where somebody's, just grumbling because they had to get up this morning, or they could come into Doug's shop. They'd go to Doug's shop because they want to smile. So there are things like that people can bring. And, also the experiences and everything that a veteran in particular brings with them, and just a different aspect of life and their perspective on life, and and that teamwork and the having each other's back and the camaraderie and the desire to serve, and those are really strong components, and a lot of people, especially younger people getting into employment, don't have those things yet, and you can't buy those. You can't put a price tag on those. When I said who knows him or her best, it goes back to, who can you talk to about him or her? Is it, their other half, or is it maybe a boss that they really liked, or, maybe it's a DOR or a VR counselor. Maybe it's their roommate or a friend. But, what does he or she say about him or her? And keep that in mind as you're building your profile, because that can really help you fill out that entire picture of the individual. Where does he or she live is critical too. I worked with one guy, his name was Miguel, and he drove unarmored transport, and he could not get on a freeway. There was too much going on. He could not. He could go about a block and a half from his house, and that was the extent of his comfort level. So we worked with that, right? And one of the things that we worked with, because he was hyper vigilant, right? He was always looking for that bomb that was going to go off, or something that's changed in my environment. I mean, that was just kind of the space that he was still in. He ended up getting a security clearance and working for a government contractor, and moving up in the ranks, because it turned his, what you would call a deficit, right, into an attribute. And it was something that, again, you can't buy. I mean, either you're super, super tuned into your environment or you're not. You can't just flip a switch and be one or the other. So he was really successful there. And it wasn't weird that he was like that. And it made him successful because then he had a purpose. And then finding the cultural and ecological fit, much like with Miguel, it was a good cultural fit with him. He understood the contractor life. He understood the government life. He understood the regiment, the frequency, the repeated patterns. Those things were all really good for him. And he wasn't around a lot of people because that made him nervous as well. So it was a good cultural and ecological fit. And he's continued to move up in the company. So he's doing really well. Questions? This is Michael. So Michael was a leader. Michael was a planner in the military. Michael was very successful. Michael is extremely analytical and likes the weeds. Michael can talk himself out of an interview quite easily because Michael is super analytical. He will tell you why he is a good candidate, and he will tell you why he is not a good candidate, and go on and on and on about both. And he can tell you how to improve your processes in a heartbeat at like lightning speed without even having to know much about your company. It's just, those are just some of Michael's attributes. He found a great job working in a call center. The call center was doing some transitions because it hadn't been under a really detail-oriented person. So Michael's analytic skills and attention to detail and just whip smart, take it on headstrong ways made him the perfect person for that position. And the company knew that that was exactly what they needed for that position. And he's just thrived. So yeah, a lot of people would call him a contrarian or just, egotistical or, seriously, but he is just super brilliant and can do anything. And yeah, so he just literally thrived in that. There was, I can't imagine that he could have found a better job. And, it did wonderful things, and the call center has thrived. And it's actually a call center for veterans in crisis. So it was a really nice fit. Discovery. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time. So when we're talking about things that we need to keep in mind, any routines that may need to be adjusted, any attire or clothing that may need to be purchased or attained in transportation, those are some of the things we think of. Some people have doctor's appointments that they need to go to frequently. So we need to make sure that those are on board and that those are on deck. Either the person has a flexible schedule to accommodate those, or the routines can be adjusted. I know many of the veterans that I work with, they're up at dark 30 and do their workout first thing in the day before they start. Well, if you're starting your job at 4 a.m., that is dark 30. So it kind of throws your job off. It throws your day off. It throws your whole routine off. Sometimes that works for people and sometimes it doesn't. So we want to look at routines before we get in. We want to look at schedules when you're at your best, right? And if there are certain things that are just non-negotiable, if you truly believe that the best way to start your day, the best way for you to be your best is to get a 10-mile run in and spend 2 hours of sweat equity in the gym before you start your work day, I'm not going to tell you you have to change that. I mean, my goodness, more people should be that determined. So we just need to keep that in mind when we're looking for a job and when we're helping them find jobs, right? And then things that need to be purchased or obtained to help them be successful on their job. And then transportation, just like I said with Miguel, that's a big thing for some people. Other people, they get in the car and they drive. Sample conditions of employment, I think we talked about schedule, health, family, learning style, support system. Who's going to be their backup? One of the things that we really enjoy is that we're mentors for people, and we're I always say we're standing there behind you, but unless you lean back, you'll never know we're here, right? So we've got your back. We're always going to be there for you if you need to touch out, but we're not going to get in your way. Whoops, I'm sorry. I just went too far ahead. Oh, now I can't get back. Oh, well. So you need to think about health, learning styles, work environment, tasks, activities, work culture, supervisory style, physical environments, right? Lights, noises, indoors, outdoors, things like that. Locations, wages, and benefits are also critical, of course. Alan. So Alan got a safety manager position in charge of quality assurance for helicopter loads flying utility equipment into remote areas, and will conduct safety audits of transmission line jobs. I'm sorry, it says Adam, it's Alan. He'd done similar work in the Marine Corps, and he was well suited for it. He liked being in charge of his own schedule, and he liked being able to be out and about and checking on things and just reporting in. He was mobile. He got to move around a lot and do a lot of different things. So those all fit really well for him. And again, he was very successful at it. This is one of my favorites. I was living in my car with children and not much hope for life here in San Diego. I wanted a better life for my special needs child and also better job opportunities. When other veteran services asked me, why don't you just go back to Arkansas? I felt that I was at my lowest. I felt worthless. I felt that all my time in the service didn't count for anything. I'm now working, my kids and I have housing, and I continue to be I have a champion who checks in with me. Right? That's customized employment, right? We didn't say go back to Arkansas. It's cheaper back there. You'll be successful. Why are you staying here? There's nothing for you here. None of that, right? We started with her where she was. What she was telling us was meaningful to her, what she wanted on her terms. And she and her family are blossoming. In case you can't tell, I'm a little passionate about this. I really love working with people, and customized employment just makes sense. It's not hooey. It's not anything new. It's not a parallel system for people with disabilities. It's what we all do every single day. But for some reason, we need to call it out and say, look, it works for everybody. Here are some of the resources that I put together. The Department of Labor Customized Employment Veterans has some videos and a white paper that I did on customized employment of veterans through the Department of Labor. Customized employment for Griffin Hammas. Griffin Hammas, of course, is a globally recognized leader in customized employment. They've done some fabulous stuff with customized employment and veterans. And there are three really good tools that are used often for veterans, and that's discovery, of course. And then there's self-guided discovery, and then there's also group discovery. So they've created all three of those tools, and those can be found on their website or just by searching those titles. And then the Lead Center has done some great work with veterans and customized employment as well. And their link is up here. And I believe that Joseph is putting that in the chat box as well. And now I stopped talking. I'm sorry, that was a really long run.
It was great, Debbie. I think we got all the questions in chat. Please do visit those links. Deb's featured in there, and it's just additional learning. Debbie, I think for the 4 or 5 questions that we had come in via email, I think you've covered some of them. But we're going to go back to this one because I think it's important for folks. One, in your role at Easterseals, Southern California, why'd you get into supporting veterans? Because you also support job seekers intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so why'd you get into it? And then talk a little bit about that funding model, because there's a question, how are these job seekers funded in California? Is it VR, and what other funding streams?
Sure. I don't know. I got into it because it's the right thing to do. I couldn't imagine not doing it. When I first started looking at the stats of veteran employment, I was just appalled. And I started looking at, what the need was. I started out in San Diego. I spent about 18 months doing a needs assessment in San Diego, and not a formal needs assessment. I don't do that kind of stuff. I do, I met with the other partners that were already out there. I met with people who actually walk the walk, and, and really spent a lot of time hearing from the individuals on the streets. And there was no one who was just doing employment. It was, you can come to me and you can go through this 8-week training, and we'll make sure that you get a certificate when you're done, and you'll be all ready. We're going to program you from the military, and then you can be a civilian. And, there were all these things, or come to us and you'll get a suit, or come to us and we'll do your resume, or come to us and learn interview skills. But there was no one getting people jobs. And that was really where the rubber meets the road. I mean, come on. Do I need a suit? I mean, I think I could figure out the suit if I get a job, right? Which, yeah, anyway. So that was it. It just makes sense. And I mean, my goodness, all gave some and some gave all. Sorry, I'm speechless.
So you mentioned, Debbie, the philanthropic side of it. I am assuming you're doing some fundraising to support this, because you've also invested heavily in really good staff, viewing this work as economic development, not just disability services. So is that correct, that this is mostly funded, as you mentioned earlier, with some fundraising?
That's true. Yes, it is. We have some excellent corporate partners, and that's one of the really nice things, is that there is such a push for corporate diversity, or diversity and inclusion, and veterans really resonate. Most of us know a veteran, or a family member of a veteran, or even if it's the 1%. There is a connection there. So that has really been helping us, small corporations as well as quite large ones, and then foundations as well, who really believe in our work and have seen the outcomes and are willing to back it. So that's made an incredible difference. And then DOR does fund some, and then VA funds some, but work adjustment stuff, certified work therapy.
Yeah.
I really think that people can get in the real world and really work.
Yeah, Deb, I'm glad you mentioned that. For our attendees, remember, there is a patient certificate from USDOL that's just like subminimum wages for sheltered workshops. It's actually a larger number than what you'd think. So I'm glad you mentioned that the Veterans Administration, while it does lots of good things, is woefully behind on evidence-based employment practices. Deb, I don't know that we'll have time for this one, so maybe we'll ask it, and then if somebody wants some more information, it goes back to, of course, the mental health side, but the question is, how is disclosure handled when supporting veterans? So I'm assuming someone's talking not about veteran status in this question, but behavioral health and those kinds of things. So do you want to take a shot at it?
Sure. And, interestingly, I've met a number of veterans who don't disclose their veteran status.
Really?
Which is, I mean, talk about, it's just heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
But because of the stigma, somebody's going to go postal, somebody's going to, or if one of my staff said that his former employers used to think, well, some of his employment experiences before I hired him were like, if I can't see something that's wrong with you, it must be wrong in your head, and you scare me. I mean, that was literally what, and that's just, anyway, so disclosure is, very individualized, of course. 99% of the people that I work with don't think they have a disability, and don't view life that way. and will say, the person right there in the wheelchair has a disability. I don't have a disability. So disclosure isn't a big thing. I mean, actually, it is a big thing in that it's not disclosed. But that's the beautiful thing about customized employment, is that we can learn some of those things when the person needs support, things to be avoided when they're at their best, and tie that into their position so that they don't need to have those accommodation discussions, because we've already accommodated them on the front end through doing customized employment the right way.
Debbie, that's a great way to state that, and we can, for the few people who are interested in that disclosure issue, I know Debbie and I've talked about this. The IPS approach to supported employment has a pros and cons kind of discussion guide that you can have with job seekers that should always be in the control of the job seeker what's being disclosed. But it's a real helpful tool to kind of just guide the conversation around, well, there are probably some good things with disclosing and maybe some things that aren't so good. Cynthia Shipman has said, awesome job, Debbie. Amy, you're asking the group, does anyone know if agencies in Georgia are using Discovery with veterans? I don't know of any of that, but something we should research further, definitely. And Debbie, I guess since we only have these last couple minutes, I will end on this one. And Joseph, I think you're going to put in chat for next week's webinar with Tricia Jones-Parkin on school to work transition. Please send that out to, families, special educators, any of that kind of stuff. But Deb, what are some tips for providers who would like to do more to engage veterans? So I'm assuming that question is coming from a provider that doesn't do, veterans employment services now. What are some tips?
Be real. Make sure that what you're doing isn't building a parallel system. Find out what services are already out there so that you can complement them and not duplicate them. If there's someone who's doing quote unquote work readiness or deprogramming from the military or whatever, maybe you can partner with them to be on the back end and do the placement piece so that you've got a natural referral stream. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to go through those things. I'm just saying that those were some of our first referral agencies, were the people that were already established because they already had the incoming referrals, but they weren't getting the jobs. So then we picked up where they left off, and it was a good relationship. And then just reaching out to your collaborators, your coalitions, any coalitions in your communities, veterans coalitions, and really listening to them and what their needs are and where the specific needs lie.
Debbie, thank you so much. This is, I echo Cynthia Shipman's comments and others. This has been so great. I'm so glad we recorded it. Please do join us next week for the discussion on transition and school to work and all that. Joseph has put information into the chat for our other webinars. Please go to those resources that Debbie has shared too. Amy, since it's Employer Week, do you want to mention anything about what folks should pay attention to on the employer stories that we're going to be disseminating?
Sure. Thanks, Doug, and thanks so much, Debbie. I loved hearing you speak. A lot of the themes you came up were really great. So this is Employer Week. A lot of what we're doing is how do we support employers throughout Georgia. We have an interview with somebody who kind of works in the field of employer support. We also have some employer success stories. So please look out for those. And if you have any employers who are looking to hire, whether it be big companies or small businesses, we want to partner with them to think about this. And so please look out for those stories. And then we also have employers in Georgia who are actively hiring people with disabilities. And so we'll be sharing out some of those links that are specific for people looking for opportunities where they have supports already in place. So yeah, a lot of good stuff is coming out this week.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you all for being with us on this day that some people take off. We're so glad you could join us, and we look forward to seeing you next week same time, different Zoom link. All right. Thank you, Debbie Ball. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.